Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome to Leading the Way. I am so excited you've joined us for another awesome episode, and really excited to have another amazing guest. James Madison's with us today. James, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Chris, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be a delight. Well, I'm excited to have you on, but not everyone else knows why I'm excited about that. So let me tell folks a little bit about you, and then we'll dive right in. So James Madison is a chief energy officer, a little bit different type of CEO, speaker, trainer, and coach at On Purpose Life LLC. He helps successful senior leaders leave that burnout and overwhelm behind and enjoy leading, winning their winning teams again, and the achievement of extraordinary results. He's very passionate about helping people get clear on what they want and get the heck out of their own way to create their wildest dreams. He believes that when you live your life in purpose, on purpose, you will never work another day in your life. All flow, no hustle is his mantra. James, I love that. Love that. I love that.
Thank you, Chris. That sounded beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's you, so it should, right? So, in purpose, on purpose, uh, what's that mean? Let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah, that's something as I've come through my journey, as I left corporate and kind of started to discover this for myself. I kind of coined that phrase that when you live your life in purpose, on purpose, meaning in your unique purpose, your
Mm,
calling, what you're here for, when you really know that and you're grounded in that and you do it on purpose, intentionally, put those two together,
mm.
all the things that are meant for you show up in your life. All the people, the resources, the opportunity, the money, like the things that you need when you're really grounded. The
Right.
opposite of that is what we call hustle, grind, grit, which we see in the world,
Yes.
right? It's
Right.
the work hard to get point 0.9 of the result versus when I found when people are really aligned in purpose on purpose, 1 + 1 = 11, which is
Mm,
just a much better place to be.
right. And I'm wondering too, I mean, a lot of folks I know, my clients, and I'm imagining for yours too, they're stressed out with things going on in the economy. There's an election year, there's layoffs going on. I mean, there's always stressors out there, but it can feel like there's this crescendo right now. What's different about, or is there anything different about the timing of those circumstances coming at us and living that in purpose, on purpose?
Yeah, that what's interesting, there's nothing different about those. They're always going to be out there. The
Okay.
the key shift or pivot is that it's an inside job.
Mm,
It isn't about the external things. It's
okay.
about going inside and understanding what's happening on the inside, kind of what the focus is, what one wants to create, and then making choices to navigate the things that we will never control, all those things. Six
Right.
months from now, there'll be a whole new set of things, right?
Right.
And people that try to adapt strategies and plans to those are the ones that are burnt out, stressed out, have panic attacks because they are coming from external, which we do not control. It's
Right.
always an inside job.
Got it. Got it. So no matter what the circumstances are, it's an inside job. Now, when the circumstances are really loud, it can, it can diffuse that grounding, I would imagine, right? And
Yeah.
it's probably the go-to would be hustle and grind or whatever else is our go-to kind of prehistoric programming there. Is that what you see tends to happen?
That's exactly that is our natural programming. That's what has been celebrated, growing up through school and different jobs, the
Right.
firefighters, the people that are the long hours in early, out late, those things
Yeah.
that over time we know how that ends. We know that that ends in, health issues, relationship issues, mental health issues, things like that. So that can't be sustained long term. It may be a short-term strategy based on things, but even when that is grounded still in purpose, on purpose, it's more effective, has greater impact, each
Mm.
additional output and effort that person has.
Okay. Okay. And when you talk about being in flow, let's clear that up a little bit because I think a lot of folks could get, if you're really comfortable with hustle and grind and that's what we know and it feels good and like work hard, you'll get the result. And flow is something different than that, but it's also not like let's just hope for the best, right?
Correct.
You're still taking action when you're in
Yes.
flow, but something's different, yeah?
Yeah. And I love to make this distinction. Flow is not floating.
Okay.
Okay. Some people think of flow as this floating aimlessly, going with the flow. Flow is not that at all. There's
Okay.
a sense of focus, There's a sense of working 4% harder to achieve the thing. There's a sense of freedom, and there's a sense of feedback on how you're doing. So it is still focused towards something. It is still work. But because the work is in alignment, there's this sweet spot that you hit at some point where it feels like not much is going on, but a lot of things are happening.
Okay.
So it's not happening to you. You're still creating it, and you're not out there just kind of floating, in the wind. That's the distinction that some people think. If I'm not grinding, then I'm floating, and that's not true.
Right, right. So I know you work with a lot of leaders and a lot of really powerful teams. Is your approach to work with that leader first and get them aligned with that, or is it the group or some of each?
It works a little bit of both ways. It depends on how I come to them. I've
Okay.
come to people, I've done speaking engagements, and the leaders brought me in to work with the team.
Yeah.
Then that can result in individual work. One of the clients I've worked with the longest, we did individual work, right, to
Mm,
really get this sense of alignment in him first,
mm,
because the work was caught up in the mentality of the hustle, grind, grit thing. Work to undo that. Then he chose a different path for work, that had equally challenging things going on, but they were
mm-hmm,
exactly the crazy kind of challenging things that he was wired for. That was the difference. It
mm,
was a perfect match of who he was. Then after he got to another company, after about 6 months, he called me up and said, "Hey, can you come and do what you did with me with my entire executive team? Because I'd
nice.
love to have them have that understanding, because then as a team, we can really just hit our stride and learn how to work together." And so that's sometimes the way it works. And
Mm,
I enjoy wherever it starts. It's always fun for me to jump in where I can.
nice. I'm sure you have lots of them, but any, success stories before and after the org was like this or the person was like this, and then the work's not instant. This stuff takes some time, but as they're doing the work and moving forward, what sort of transitions, monetary or non-monetary, have you seen with those teams?
Yeah, what I've seen is when let me think of a team. Yeah, so a team that I'm working with, was, I would say, they weren't playing well in the sandbox together. These are
Okay.
senior leaders, right? And you're talking about the people leading the entire organization, right?
Right.
And it just, different personalities, just like all of us, different challenges, egos. And so we work to really help them understand who they were first, who
Mm,
they were, what their superpowers were, like in the open as a group. We did this work together and really understood how their unique um, strengths that they brought to the team complemented some of the others, and they didn't need to be considered as conflicts or anything to be ashamed of or wish they could be more of. And so,
right.
really, just level setting the team with here's what each of them brings, here's how it works together, and what they started to do is have this common language for how they address problems. They could actually draw out these unique characteristics from each other by saying, hey, we need a little bit more of that knowledge banker energy at this point. Hey, can you
Mm,
help bring that on? Because we know that's where you live and breathe. Hey, we need a little more of that creativity. Let's add that to the mix. Okay, we've got enough of that. It's time to make some action happen. And it was
yeah.
just this really unique way of honoring each of them as they showed up, and together as a team, it's been 18 months. They have accomplished amazing things with the company. Board members created a strategy for 7 years out,
Wow.
2030, to help drive the organization. And again, the foundation has been about them understanding who they are, how they show up, and how they enter, the interworkings of how they work together. And from there, that's been the foundation. And the cool part is that in each of their functions, they've kind of drilled that down a little bit for the people that
Nice.
work underneath them. So it's created this culture in the organization of really what I like to call honoring, valuing, and appreciating what everybody brings.
Hmm.
So then people just bring more of what they naturally have.
Nice. Nice. It sounds like a couple things there as you're saying. I was thinking through. One is it's partially an acceleration of playing to your strengths when you're really being honest about that, and you can start to cover for other people. Maybe someone's weaker there and you're strong there, and when you're in team mode, you're just going to cover for them. There's not the animosity. But the other I was just curious about, and this just came to me honestly, was as these leaders get in flow and their org gets in flow, the org itself is going to have kind of its own flow as well. Not to get too woo, but
Yes.
um, that kind of dynamic is going to attract customers and vendors that you want to play with, right? And not be in so much, will grind, right?
Yeah. What's really interesting is when everybody learns how to recognize these characteristics and kind of they're able to kind of understand where a person's coming from. It not only works in the team, it works outside of the team. So
Mm,
they're able to look at their stakeholders, board members, other people, partners in town, and they're really able to go, oh, wow, this is where this person comes from, right? This is their perspective. Let me
right.
meet them where they are so we can build this bridge and have better relationships. And now we can get more done together. So you see less resistance, even where there's conflict, there can still be conflict, but less resistance because
Hmm.
of honoring the unique perspectives. And you're right, it becomes this ripple effect everywhere they go where they kind of bring people together and understand it. And where there's conflict, they're able to work through it and it be less personal and more about the task at hand that's, the common ground that they've decided. So yes, it really does have that second, third level effect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the other thing I would imagine would be powerful is of many things here is Gen Z, younger generation is it's a generalization, but they're more connected as a generalization to purpose, to having meaning in their work, and not just
Yeah.
my generation and my parents was really all about more money means more success, and we're okay with kind of putting everything to the side, even though we really weren't. It still followed us around the trailer behind us, but Gen Z seems to be more connected with purpose, and I'm imagining this helps light that up, right? Because if there's conflict in the upper ranks that trickles down or bottom up, when they're living that in purpose as an organization, that's going to attract top talent, right? That's seeking that connection.
That's right. It's going to attract and retain because to your point, we learn to do things, and the answer we always got when we asked, like, why do we need to do something, was because I said so,
Right.
or because this is the way it is. We didn't really learn until much later the why, because
Yeah.
we just put that to the side, right? We sacrificed. The generations now want to know why.
Yeah.
Why? And as a good leader, when you can engage people in the why, they bring all the hows and the whats, and you
Mm,
don't need to spend as much time being prescriptive in what and how things get done because they it unleashes what they bring once they understand the why up front.
right.
We did an exercise with the same organization, probably 250 people at different levels, where we did the why exercise. Why are you here?
Mm,
Beyond the benefits and all that. Why? And it got to these very common things about service, about legacy, about I grew up, doing this type of a business, and that's something that's been in my family 3 generations. I want to help
wow.
connect people for a better life. Like I was really amazed when we went through this that it really was about these fundamental things. That's why people show up every day.
Mm,
That's why they endure maybe the challenges and all the things that happen externally because there's this bigger why that helps really ground them in what they do. So to your point, that has been like the biggest thing that's helped people then think about their work with a much bigger purpose, to your point.
love it. Love it. I can imagine some folks listening as leaders could get concerned that they might have more attrition, right? If they allow the why and actually the person really doesn't want to be there and they want to have their side hustle become the full-time hustle or, leave to a competitor. Do you see that as a real pattern, even though I want to honor that as a valid fear and I understand people feeling that way? Do you really see that in behavior when you do this work at
No, I
all?
don't I don't see wholesale get up and leave. Nobody's like totally in the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But what they do is get really grounded in why they're somewhere and what it is about them that connects. And
Mm,
and I don't know, you've seen the studies that say 30% of people or 30% of people's energy is really engaged at work. There's
yeah.
another 70%, that's not. Well, what it does is it really taps into that untapped potential for people to really plug in when they understand why. And if there's some little misalignments, they can at least be aware of those and find other opportunities to get involved in things that fill up more of their cup. So
Right.
rarely have I seen anybody just get up and leave. It's just they think a little bit about the work they do, and they also think about the life they live. What do they do outside the work that
Mm,
fills them up? Because work isn't the thing that's supposed to fill you up 100%, but they
right.
start thinking about, wow, what can I get involved in that would give me a little bit of that thing that I'm missing that would round me out so that when I'm at work and when I'm at home, I'm more joyful and fulfilled. And that's usually the biggest benefit that I see.
Absolutely. And last thing I was thinking about too is, we've had this post-COVID world where folks are working a little bit more remotely. Some organizations have gone back in office. Most are hybrid or partially remote, especially in tech and other industries. Does that shape this work at all? I mean, do folks need to all be in the office to do this work or on the same place? Or are you able to do it a mix of things? I mean, does it affect the efficacy, I guess, is what I'm asking of this kind of work when folks are remote?
No, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, a lot of the work I started out doing was remote because it was everybody was remote. And I think the way I started to create some of the engagements I did were because people weren't feeling connected to an organization anymore during the
Mm,
pandemic. Think
mm,
about people that started with an organization and never had water cooler talk, never got to see people
wow.
and just have these like you're right. And so then if people aren't if leaders aren't able to kind of management by walking around and create the culture by being around, then people need to be able to connect to something themselves. And so
Mm,
if they first know what drives them, what are their core values, what are their strengths, how does that connect to the company, there's this locking in that happens that's even stronger than town halls and fun things that companies used to do that were just nice. But this is
right.
where someone really connects in with who I am and what I do really, really line up.
Yeah.
Because during the world where people are remote, it's really easy to leave one company in your pajamas and go to the next company in your pajamas without any peer pressure, without any conversations, right? So if
Right.
they really connect into this company, then regardless of whether it's remote or hybrid, there's this greater sense of commitment and service that they bring. That's what I find.
Yeah. No, that makes sense too. And I would imagine these leaders, if you have the emotional intelligence, the ability to look at yourself, the ability to look at others, you're operating at a different level than just command control, do this
Yes,
or else we need to
that's
hit
right.
this date. Um, and you're also enabling your team to use their cerebral cortex to, fully problem solve instead of being in this command control. I need to hit the date. I'm working for the man. I hate the boss.
That's
I
right.
would imagine that all softens up quite a bit with
Yeah,
this
and
approach.
guess what the challenge for the leader is? The leader has to truly be a leader and not just a driver of command and control.
Right,
So
right. They
so that
can't have
this
all the
new
ideas anymore. In fact, they shouldn't, right? That's a hard shift though, when folks are
that's
used
a
to
hard shift
being,
for yeah,
yeah, used to being quote unquote the smartest person in the room or whatever nomenclature people give themselves in that world,
yeah,
where I'm the idea solver or the superhero that comes in and removes all the obstacles. They're now more of an orchestrator kind of role, right? And
absolutely.
that's
And
a
that's a shift in
shift.
leaders. That's a huge shift. And one of the tools I use is called the Core Values Index. And it helps identify these four core value energies that people show up with. Problem
Mm.
solving is one of them. And one of the ones I find with leaders, I remember coaching a leader who said, I give my team members the easier assignments because I don't want to give them the hard things because that's not fair to them. Guess what we found out was on that team? All these problem solvers that were starving, that were not being
Jeez.
engaged because the harder the Rubik's Cube, the more they showed up. And
Right,
when she saw that, she went, oh my gosh, as a leader, I need to be giving them what they need, not what I think they need. And so
right.
it kind of shifted her thinking about how she leads her team. So I think the challenge is more for the leaders.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I would imagine the teams just get so excited, right? We've all been in teams where folks are checked out. I've seen the Gallup polls where I think employee engagement something like 30%, the lowest it's ever
30,
been in the States,
that's right.
right? And this just I mean, the way out of that is not more command control, not more hustle and grind, but really connect with the people. You talk about your in purpose, on purpose, and boy, just meet them where they're at. I mean, it's in some ways it's epically simple, right? It's hard to do, but it's
Right.
really simple.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes and it's just three simple things, right? Help people understand the why, bringing it back to why. As a
Okay.
leader, you don't need
Yep.
to solve the problem. Help them understand the why. Help them understand the curbs and boundaries, right? The guardrails of the what,
Right.
and then unleash them to figure out the how and the final what. And then stay in a position of being able to be a resource, the safety net, a guide, whatever the team needs, because that extra potential that gets unleashed will create greater things than command and control would drive through just do it this way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, you said so well earlier, the carryover in your personal life, whether you're a parent or leader of yourself or whatever else with friends, that's a totally different approach too, where it's not about, comply or else. And that does have a place, albeit a small place in leadership. There's a small percentage of time that we've got this mandate, we've got to figure out how to do it. the shift there is you engage the team to, hey team, we've got to hit this thing. How do we figure this out together versus do it now. Here's the date. Just make it happen. Be quiet. Right.
Right, because I call that the feed the machine model. When you're in the machine and you're just feeding the machine, it
Yeah.
creates this culture of pure compliance. Check your brain at the door, just comply. And
Yep.
what happens is nobody has ownership for the results. So when they
Mm,
don't go well, no sweat on my back. That's what you told me to do. That's on you. And when it does
right.
go well, great, we'll celebrate. But when you flip it the other way, there's skin in the game. There's a vested interest in making things work. And
Right.
the creativity and the innovation that comes out is way better than one leader could think of, right? And
Right.
so I think this is a time for leaders to be really challenged in how to engage and unleash what's already in their teams. Every team I work with says we need more people, more time, more energy. And
Right.
I say, you have it all there. It's
It's
just
already there.
untapped because you only have 30% that you're getting to your
Right.
point. It's about the
And
leader drawing it out.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. And it's, with the economy the way it is, the likelihood of getting more people, if they're even available, right? I've
Yes.
worked in tech for 30 years. We're always at a shortage of tech people. And it's not like magically another million are going to show up with graduate degrees from MIT and Harvard and everywhere else.
Right.
So you have to leverage what you already have. And boy, what a great way to do it. And relatively simple in approach, relatively practical, it sounds like. Of course,
Yeah.
it's brain science based. And then the results, it sounds like some of them are going to happen pretty quickly right away. And some, it's a slog of several weeks of people getting used to this different approach and knowing how to use this muscle. Um, Walk me through a little bit, like say someone listening to this is like, I want James right now, and I want my organization transformed overnight. Somewhere between that and 9 years, what's that timeline kind of look like when folks work with you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's some low-hanging fruit that I usually the team experiences when they can all just take a deep breath and recognize what they uniquely bring.
Okay.
One of the things I say is that a strong team needs to be a team where people see other superpowers as a complement to their own and not a threat to their position or authority. Other superpowers as a complement. So that's the first thing, that's just this, okay, this is what I bring. I bring the creativity, you bring the practicality, you bring the vision. I don't need to try to be like you, so I can just bring this. And now you're calling on me when you have things that go on because you see me and you value me. Now my 30% went to 60%. I'm all in. Like
Right.
I'm really engaging. And from there, strategies get created, the processes, the initiatives, things just start to happen much better than ever before. Communication gets better.
Yep.
Conflict still happens because there's still conflicting views, but there's a way to navigate conflict that it doesn't become debilitating.
Mm,
And so I see, in the first 6 months, just the opening up and a clarity of how a team works together. And then they get clear on what they want to create. That's the
right.
next step. What is the vision? What does it look like? And what are the strategies? What are the plans? And things just start to happen in lockstep a lot faster.
Nice. Nice. So how do folks listening to this and their friends they know that need help contact and work with you?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. I'm on LinkedIn at James F. Madison on LinkedIn. My website is onpurpose-life.com.
Mm,
And my email is james at onpurpose-life.com. Any of those ways you can reach out, and I'd be glad to have a conversation and see what you got going on.
nice, nice. And for those of you folks jogging or driving, whatever, don't get in an accident or hurt yourself. This will be in the show notes, so you can click on it later. But definitely encourage you to reach out to James. He's incredibly talented. He's worked with some very big companies that we will not name to protect the innocent. But great having you on the show. James, before I close out, I always ask every guest, what's something you're thankful or grateful about right now?
Yeah, I gotta say that I'm grateful that 4 years ago when I made my big pivot out of the corporate world, that I was able to discover my purpose,
Mm,
which is ignite purposeful growth. When I got clear on that, that has created the path for every decision I've made, every opportunity that showed up, even being on this podcast, right, with you, has been through, following that. And so that's something I'm grateful for because every day I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but I have an idea of the direction that I'm headed because that purpose is so well grounded in me.
that's awesome. So powerful. Thanks so much, James, for living that and being on the show and serving and helping so many others. I'm really grateful for that, and grateful for our listeners. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way. Make sure to do all those magical things that make algorithms happy, like click subscribe and like, and share with your friends, even more importantly, if this is a message you know would resonate with them. James, thanks again for being in the show. Thanks, listeners, for being here, and keep leading the way.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.